Hey, joining us now, talk a little bit about the Republican National Committee is doing. That's right, the Republican National Committee, the RNC. Talk a little bit about what they're doing. Is their co-chair, Bob Paduchik, back on the John Fredericks Show with bells on. Bob, Mr. Co-chair, good to have you.
Thanks, John. I wouldn't say I've got bells on necessarily, but I'm happy to be on. I love the program, and it's great to be on in Virginia.
Well, you should have bells on, Bob, because you guys are raising a record amount of money. So that's like jingle bells right there. I mean, you guys are raising money like crazy. You're crushing the Democrats at the Bob Paduchik home. And Rain, how are you raising all this money?
Well, look, first off, our chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, is doing a great job getting around the country and meeting with donors and putting together the operation to raise that money. But another part of it is the president and Republicans in Congress that they made promises and they kept those promises. We made promises on cutting regulations. They made promises on cutting taxes. They made promises on conservatives in the court. And when you have elected officials, it's a strange occurrence, I know, John, because most people aren't used to this. But when a politician says something and they come and they actually do it and they deliver on their promises, people feel good about that. So the vast majority of those checks that we receive are small dollar contributions, which shows us that our base of support is strong. And contrary to the mainstream media narrative, I think Republicans are happy with what this president's doing. As you yourself said earlier in the segment here, tax cuts, more jobs, more money in people's pockets. It's a beautiful thing.
It really is, Bob, and it's a double-edged sword here if you look at the polling numbers, because let's start with the bad news, okay? Let's get to the House race in Pittsburgh. This is a race there's no way that Republicans should lose, Bob. I mean, you have to admit this. Trump carried this district by 20 points. Swing state, Pennsylvania, carried that. You got the tax cut going. We got all things that are going for us. I mean, the candidate there, Saccone. I mean, he's not the best candidate in the world, but he's not the worst. It's not like he made any gaffes. He's just not the most inspiring guy you'll ever meet, telegenic and things like that. The Democratic candidate, Connor Lamb, if you created the right Democratic candidate for that district out of a petri dish, it would be him. Marine veteran, 33, served 2 tours, Ivy League graduated, young family, good-looking guy, all that stuff, telegenic, blah, blah, blah. But this is a race there's no way the Republicans should lose. And I'm getting people telling me that internal polling is showing Saccone down by 3, and Republicans are now bracing for that loss. So the first question is I have, what the hell happened there, and can you still win it?
Well, these special elections are much different than what happens in November. Honestly, a big factor of this is the candidates, but there are other issues that play as well, where the economy is, where the generic ballot is, where the president is on all these issues. Let me just say that this has always been discussed as a tight race, and I think this will be a tight race. I think it'll come down to the wire, and we've been doing a lot out there for Rick Saccone because he supports the president and the president's agenda and the president's values. You know, as you said, Connor Lamb, this character here is like pro Second Amendment, pro-life Democrat. But here's the problem with that, is there's no room in the Democratic Party for anyone that supports the Second Amendment or is pro-life. We see that in Illinois, 3rd Congressional District, a guy by the name of Dan Lipinski. He's been a 7-term congressman that the Democrats are trying to push out. The Democratic Congressional Committee is trying to tank his campaign. He's an incumbent. He's been there for 7 years. But because he's not liberal enough on social issues, he's not left-wing enough, the Democrats are getting rid of him. So how do they let a guy like this, Connor Lamb, represent them in Pennsylvania 18? And to me, it's all a smokescreen. I don't think this guy's legit on these issues. I think when he gets to Washington, if he gets to Washington, I don't think it's going to happen. But if he gets to Washington, it would be he would be a reliable vote for Nancy Pelosi, because that's all the Democrats will tolerate in their party.
Well, of course he will. And the fact that he's running around saying that, well, if I'm elected, the Democratic candidate in that Pittsburgh suburb district, Connor Lamb, running around saying, well, if I'm elected, I will not vote for Nancy Pelosi for speaker. It doesn't matter, right? She's going to be the speaker. They'll have a majority. She's going to be the speaker. You know, maybe there'll be 5 votes against her because people had to promise that. She's going to be the speaker, and that's what you're going to be faced with is a Nancy Pelosi regime like we had after the bloodbath in 2006 when the Democrats won all those seats. So, look, make a prediction on this race, Bob.
Well, look, I think Rick Saccone's going to win. I really do. From what I've seen, I was out in the district a week ago. I think that there's enthusiasm on both sides. I think it's more visible for the Democrats because their enthusiasm is an angry enthusiasm.
Right.
But, again, you know, these are, you know, there's a tendency for the Democrats in the mainstream media, the leftists in the mainstream media, to get out there and latch on to any kind of talking point that they can. Right. And so they're going to try to nationalize a lot of these things. Look at what happened in Texas. For several days, we heard this blue wave was coming in Texas. Texas is becoming a Democratic stronghold because of the outrage against Trump and Republicans, and this is the precursor to what we're going to see in November. And then on Election Day, lo and behold, Republicans' participation in the primary is 3-2 by 500,000 votes more. They outpace the Democrats. And then you don't hear anything about it again. So the
that's a great example.
The Democrats don't have a policy. They don't have an ideology that they can talk about. All they have are talking points. Talking points on the we heard about it as all the generational situation, the demographics in politics will Republicans can't win the presidency again, or the blue wall. You know, here's the problem. I don't think any of the political directors for these national media outlets know a damn thing about politics. And so when they get the Democratic talking points, they just read those, and that becomes, you know, how they report on the issue. It's you know, it's a disservice, but it's one of the things that you're going to see on this. Everything is sort of a tea leaf on the president's demise. I mean, the reason why I say this is I heard it all through 2016, the months and the weeks leading up to the election. Everybody told me how he's not going to win Ohio, how he's going to get destroyed by Hillary Clinton, and Republicans are going to lose the House and the Senate. And then here we are.
We're with Bob Paduchik from Ohio, and he is the co-chair of the Republican National Committee, making me chuckle today because your analysis of Texas is so spot on, Bob. And not only that, but the headlines in the legacy media on Wednesday was record turnout for Democrats in Texas. So when I checked, because I get up at 3:30 a.m., and this was, Washington Post, New York Times, record turnout for Democrats in Texas. Unbelievable. Is the blue wave in Texas coming? And then I'm like, wow, what the hell happened? They must have had all these Democrats turn out. And yes, they had a bigger turnout than they normally do, but the Republicans had an even bigger one. And so they never mentioned that Republicans outpaced the Democrats in Texas 3-2, right? 50%. That was never, you have to go to the bottom of the articles to find that. And it's a joke. Well, okay, let me give you some good news. Bob, I'm going to give you some good news. All right? You want some good news?
I love it. Love good news.
I'm going to fire you up, and then I'm going to close by asking you why the Indians got rid of their Cleveland Indians logo. For baseball traditionalists, that's a tough one to take. I don't like the Indians. I'm an Astro fan, so I hate everybody else. But we got to ask you about that at the end because I know you're from Ohio. But look, so here's some good news. Ready? In the Senate races, right? Montana, the generic Republican is ahead of Tester by 10. West Virginia, these Republicans haven't even been named, is ahead of Manchin by 10. This is the real politics. In Missouri, McCaskill down by 10 to Hawley by actually 9. Indiana, Donnelly down by 6 to whoever the Republican nominee is. North Dakota, Heidkamp down by 3 to whoever the Republican nominee is. Wisconsin Tammy Baldwin tied with whoever the Republican nominee is. In Michigan, Debbie Stanbo tied with whoever the Republican nominee is. In Ohio, unfortunately, Renacci down by 5 to Sherrod Brown. Pennsylvania, Casey up by 9 over Lou Barletta. That one's going to be tough. Florida, Governor Scott tied with the incumbent, Nelson in Florida, tied. I think Scott wins that race. So you're looking at just now, pick up in Montana, pick up in West Virginia, pick up in Missouri, pick up in Indiana, pick up in North Dakota. I think you're going to win Wisconsin. Got a shot in Michigan, that's 7, and you're going to win Florida. You could have 8 pickups. So where is this big blue wave here?
Well, it doesn't exist. But let me just correct one thing. I think a 5-point race in Ohio is a winnable race for Republicans, especially with the fact that Sherrod Brown is underwater. He's below 50%. And any time an incumbent is below 50%, they're in danger. And Jim Renacci just got into this race a few weeks ago. Josh Mandel was the candidate, so voters, I think, need to get a little bit acclimated to who's on the ballot. And the president asked Jim Renacci to run, and so he left the governor's race to run for the U.S. Senate. And so that give us a couple months, and I think that'll be a lot tighter in Ohio. No, I think we're in a great position. Here's the thing: there's sort of this like echo chamber in Washington, D.C., where these left-wing political directors at these news agencies and these reporters and the Democrats share talking points back and forth, and they go back and forth. I mean, we saw this in 2016. They're sharing notes and everything, and they build their own kind of reality up in this echo chamber. And you never hear about these other things that are happening. You never hear about these other factors. And so they have a tendency to kind of miss the story. And I think that's what's happening on this. I feel great about our prospects in the Senate. I feel good about our prospects in the House. It's going to be a tough election cycle, but Rana is doing a great job raising money. The president's policies are helping the economy. I think all these factors are going to be helpful to us.
All right, your analysis, Bob, spot on, right? There's no question. And we're with Bob Paduchik. We only got a couple more minutes. He's the co-chairman of the Republican National Committee from Ohio. So, Bob, disclaimer, I'm a diehard, lifetime Houston Astro fan, and I'm not a baseball fan. I'm an Astro fan. That means I hate everybody else. I hate all their teams. I hate their hot dogs. I hate their managers, general managers, fans, stadiums, beer. I hate everything. I even hate the umpires at their games. I hate them all. And I mostly hate their announcers. I'm a hater. So what's up with the Cleveland?
Wait a minute. You hate Vince Scully?
Yeah, I hate them all. Yep, sorry.
Wow.
I hate Vince Scully. Yep, Dodgers, because I hate the Dodgers. And I hate the Indians.
So
I know you're a Dodger fan.
We talked about this a little.
I hate the Indians, too, because I'm afraid of the Indians. I was happy the Yankees beat him in the playoffs. We don't match up against the Indians. Well, they always beat us. How come you're getting rid of your logo? What's up with that?
Well, again, I'm a Dodger fan, so I can't abide by the American League because I'm a traditionalist. I believe if you put on a glove, you need to pick up a bat. That said,
I love that attitude.
Horrible that they're. What's that?
You're right.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say about the logo. I think it's a sad commentary that political correctness runs as rampant as it does. It's a shame. Again, this is how the Democrats and the left-wing folks operate. They try to divide Americans, so they manufacture these controversies, and they base it on emotion, and they base it on things that are silly in some ways. But it attacks our traditions. They have to attack our traditions and our values. Sometimes it's serious things like churches and families and other institutions, and sometimes it's silly things like team logos. And it's unfortunate, but I'm disappointed because I think like that football team in Washington, they could have stood a harder line on it, and they didn't. And it's a shame.
Bob, we're out of time. I love having you on. Screw the Dodgers. Can't stand them. Especially hate Darvish from Texas. He used to beat us all the time, and maybe we'll
he's
meet
a
you
Cub
guys
now. So
I know. I don't like him either. I don't like anybody. I'm like such a hater. I hate everybody except my team. I love everybody in my team.
John, I respect that.
When I'm so bad, when somebody on my team gets traded, then I immediately hate them too. I'm just the worst. I'm the worst, Bob. Thank you for being with us. And you're from Ohio. The Reds, they stink also. John Fredericks Radio Network, Bob Paduchik. We're talking a little baseball. First we solve the world of politics. Then we solve baseball. And I'm with Bob on this one 100%. Bob, you're so right. If you pick up a glove, get up to bat, right? Bob, I got to go. John Fredericks Radio Network. Stay with us.